But thank you so much for joining us through this as well. The students are super excited that we have the CEO of Oxfam India joining us on a very, very special webinar. So actually, I think we are 2 minutes, 3 minutes in. I think we can begin as well. So just to give you all a warm welcome to this webinar with Mr. Amitabh Behar. He's the CEO of Oxfam India, and I'll give you a little bit more of an introduction. But just to tell you, thank you for joining us. As you all know that there are different themes that we cover as part of the equality clubs. So we started with gender equality. We've now moved on to economic equality, which is an integral part of understanding what's happening in the country, especially now with the COVID-19 crisis. So here we are. We'll be moving soon into diversity and inclusion, which is the third quarter, and finally finishing and culminating the club with climate justice. So it's great to see that we've moved so quickly to economic equality, and we'll be having a very inspiring discussion today as part of this webinar. Just to give you a bit of a background, Amitabh, so these are the range of schools that we have. We have about 17 partner schools, and they span across the country from Dehradun to Hyderabad, Gujarat to Meghalaya. So we have a lot of different students, mostly from grades 8 through 11th, but with different backgrounds and different perspectives on these issues. So very happy to have them. And to formally welcome you, so welcome Mr. Amitabh. I hope you can all give him a virtual applause wherever you are. We'll be talking about India for All and the COVID-19 crisis and the fantastic work that Oxfam does on economic equality and how it sort of comes together with all the different equalities that you've been learning about, whether that's gender, whether it's diversity and inclusion, or everything else that you've been hearing in the news as well. So thank you so much, Amitabh, for joining us. Instead of, I've sent them descriptions on what you've done, but I think the best way to begin today's discussion will essentially be to ask you, what is this kind of work that Oxfam India does? Because, the clubs are ultimately Oxfam equality clubs. So could you tell us really quickly about the kind of work Oxfam India does? And what has your journey been since you've been a civic society leader? What has your journey been through the process? And ultimately as the CEO of Oxfam India. So if you could quickly highlight that, that'd be great.
Sure, thank you, Amey, and thank you, Shipra. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. This is a platform where Oxfam really feels extremely proud of being involved with it, and very, very happy listening to you in terms of the number of schools, the diversity of schools, in terms of geographies, in terms of classes, so absolutely lovely. What Oxfam does, let me just say, I would be delighted if everybody looks at our website and do send me questions to me or any of my team members. We would certainly ensure that we respond to your questions about Oxfam. But in brief, let me say that we are doing 4 specific things. Those are our 4 objectives. The first one is to fight discrimination, to try and create an India which is discrimination free. So India which does not have discrimination based on whether gender, and you've already talked about it earlier, as you said, or caste, or geography, or class. So ऐसा भारत जहां discrimination ना हो. The second objective is to fight inequality, to end inequality, and particularly the levels of inequality that we see. तो गैर बराबरी के खिलाफ भी एक मुहिम है, वो भी एक ऑक्सफैम का बड़ा उद्देश्य है कि कहीं गैर बराबरी ना हो हमारे देश में. हमारा संविधान कहता है कि हम सबको समानता का अधिकार है, तो कैसे हम समानता से जीवन जी सकें. And the third is gender justice, and you've already talked about it, so I won't talk specifically more on the issue of gender justice at the moment. But whatever we do, महिला और पुरुष समान हैं, उनके समान अधिकार हैं. यह बात हम सब बहुत अरसे से कहते रहे हैं, पर समाज में वो दिखता नहीं है. हम चाहते हैं ऐसे समाज की कल्पना कर सकें, संरचना कर सकें, जिसमें स्त्री पुरुष बराबर हों, उनके बराबरी के अधिकार हों. So these are the 3 things, and the 4th thing we do is the humanitarian work. So अभी 2 साल पहले, 1.5 साल पहले केरला में बाढ़ आई, we were immediately there. Hopefully we'll talk during our conversation about even COVID. When we saw the COVID crisis hit, people were actually sleeping hungry, literally sleeping hungry, and hundreds of people in that, without thinking about any other thing, just reaching there with hot meals to ensure that people don't at least sleep hungry in this country is also, say, the fourth goal. All kinds of humanitarian support. जब बाढ़ आती है तो water and sanitation to ensure people get safe drinking water. Two, as I said, COVID, when we're looking at hunger. So these are the four broad pieces. And in India, we've been working for almost 60 years. And it's been a very, very interesting journey. For me personally, that's an interesting question. How did I reach here? You know, I'm happy to respond to more follow-up questions on this. But what I would say is, let me also be very honest and candid. Pretty much when I was growing up, I started feeling that I was growing up in privilege. Let me also say that. I come from a privileged background. मुझे कभी ये चिंता ना करना पड़ी कि घर में खाना आएगा कि नहीं, मेरी शिक्षा का क्या होगा. तो उस privilege का मुझे हमेशा लगा कि मैं सही इस्तेमाल कर सकूं और जो भी काम करूं वो एक ऐसे समाज के लिए हो जहां पर इंसाफ हो. So for me, justice has been the central driving force. Justice for everyone. And when I say justice, it's not just the High Court and Supreme Court wala justice. It's the idea of justice कि सबको dignity मिले, सबको इज्जत मिले. And I started working with that, and I have had a meandering journey. ये भी बताऊं मैं आपको honestly कि कई दफे मुझे लगा कि राजनीति ही इसका सही रास्ता है. राजनीति से बदलाव होगा. और कुछ मैंने राजनीति से जुड़ने की भी कोशिश की, पर तब मुझे लगा ये रास्ता मुश्किल है और वहां पर अभी बहुत समस्याएं हैं. So from there, then I started getting involved with what is called the civil society, the voluntary sector, NGOs, अलग-अलग नाम से हम कहते हैं, जहां पर हमारा stated objective ही ये होता है कि कैसे हम समाज को बदलने के प्रयास कर सकते हैं. So that's my journey. It's been a very, very satisfying journey, not because I've become the CEO of Oxfam, but that small contribution that we are able to make in making this world a better place is what lets me sleep comfortably every night.
Great. Thank you so much, Amitabh. I think a lot of us Equality Club participants also resonate with this because we believe in equality and we believe in justice. My quick question as a follow-up will be, within everything that you've said, discrimination or justice, where does economic equality fit in? And why do you think that is so important for our country today? So given your work, is there any sort of experience that you can share with us as to why this is something that all as Equality Club members should think about a little more deeper than we currently are?
Yeah, so let me start by framing this conversation with two facts. So this is not from my experience, but from our reports, and I think it's important to talk about it. I'll talk of two data points and tell me if it's adequately clear. The first data point is from the Government of India. And if you really take, there are a range of poverty lines that Government of India has talked of. And if you even take the midpoint, it would still be more than 25% people who are below the poverty line. Okay. Let me also tell you, there's a Government of India commission which said that 78% of Indian people, 100 में से 78 लोग दिन में सिर्फ 20 रुपए कमाते हैं. Just imagine, that's 78% people. But that was one commission, but pretty much all the commissions would say we have around 28 to 30% people of India living below poverty line. And in India, again, I'm sure there's some students of economics who will know about this. In India, the poverty line is actually a hunger line. It does not look at the multidimensionality of poverty. कई जगह यूरोप में आप पॉवर्टी कहते हैं तो उसका मतलब होता है क्या आपके पास एक्सेस टू एजुकेशन है, एक्सेस टू हेल्थ है, एक्सेस टू शेल्टर है, वो उसकी बात नहीं हो रही है। यहाँ हो रही है क्या आपको दिन में 3 बार खाना मिलता है, तो ये कैलोरीज के आधार पर हम देखते हैं। उस आधार पर भी सिर्फ 3 बार ठीक से आपका खाना मिल जाए, आप भूखे पेट ना सोएं, you're not sleeping hungry is what says the poverty line, and almost 28% of Indian population lives below that. Just remember this figure. On the other hand, our Oxfam India report 2 years ago said, and the data has not changed much, that only 9 persons, सिर्फ 9 लोग, और मैं हमेशा कहता हूं उनको आप जो है एक इनोवा में भी बैठा सकते हैं, मिनी बस की भी जरूरत नहीं है, 9 लोग जो एक इनोवा में बैठ सकते हैं, they have more wealth than 50% of Indian population. So एक तरफ 9 लोगों के पास इतना धन कि भारत के 50%, which would be say 130 crores is our population, say 65 crore people have lesser wealth than all of them put together. 65 crore people have lesser wealth than 9 people. And on the other hand, you have 28% people in this country, which would be roughly say around 30 crore people, 35 crore people who are sleeping hungry. That is economic inequality. And I've already said, why it's important. In a way, I've already made it clear that if the life conditions are so dramatically opposite that कुछ लोगों को, और कुछ नहीं, अनफॉर्चुनेटली हमारे देश में 30 करोड़ लोगों को मान लीजिए, थोड़े आंकड़े आगे पीछे हो सकते हैं, कोई कहेगा 28 करोड़, कोई कहेगा 35 करोड़, उन लोगों को अगर भूखे पेट सोना पड़ रहा है और 9 लोगों के पास इतना धन है कि 50% से ज्यादा हो, तो ये नाइंसाफी है और उस पर हमें काम करने की जरूरत है। एक लाइन और बोल दूं, मैं आप कह रहे हैं तो, क्योंकि उस पर चर्चा मैं करना चाहूंगा आगे भी, आप जरूर कुछ सवाल शायद पूछेंगे, और ये भी हमें समझना जरूरी है जो हमारे लिए बुनियादी है ऑक्सफैम के लिए, कि ये ईश्वर ने हमें गैर बराबर बना के नहीं भेजा है। It's not the nature which is saying that 9 people should have so much wealth and 28%, 30% people should sleep hungry. It is us who have created these systems, structures, and policies which lead to this inequality. So any good society, whether you look at the religious worldview, whether you look at the constitutional worldview, whether you look at any other worldview of wanting to create a good society, will not accept this level of inequality.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amitabh, for that. I think that really hits home when it comes to even understanding how grave an issue this is. I actually wanted to show a video, but I think you've explained it absolutely beautifully, so we can skip that. I would like to pass it on to my colleague Shipra, who's also on the call. Sorry, Shipra, I skipped introducing you in the beginning, so if you can just quickly introduce yourself and take the discussion forward. And I'll keep an eye on the YouTube chat to see if any questions are coming in as well. Over to you, Shipra.
Thanks, Amaya. Hi, everybody. My name is Shipra, and I work with YLAC as a project officer. And thanks, Amitabh, for being a part of this conversation. The data points that you shared certainly hit home and make us realize that there is definitely an issue out there that needs to be addressed. Taking this forward, I think the one question that I do have for you is how would you possibly differentiate between wealth inequality and economic inequality? Because a lot of times, I think a lot of us confuse the two. And how do we see this propagating around in our immediate surroundings? If you could maybe possibly give some examples of that, that would be wonderful to understand.
Sure. So, let me start by first stating that the problem is both inequality of incomes and inequality of wealth. Both are a problem, and we need to understand these are two different concepts. So let me again give you one data point, just in terms of the income bit. And to my mind, it sounds absolutely bizarre. And the word I use is these levels of inequality are obscene, morally outrageous, and unacceptable. So let me just give you one example. If you take in India, say a garment factory worker, तो जहां कपड़ा बनता है उस उद्योग की हम बात करें, तो वहां जो मजदूर काम कर रहा है और उसको जो न्यूनतम मजदूरी मिलती है, मिनिमम वेज, उसको उसकी तुलना करें उसी गारमेंट फैक्ट्री के सीईओ की सैलरी से, तो आप सोच सकती हैं क्या कि उनको कितने बरस लगेंगे मिनिमम वेज वाले को सीईओ की 1 महीने की सैलरी प्राप्त करने के लिए? नहीं, करीब 934 साल लगेंगे अगर वो मिनिमम वेज लेते रहे तो फिर मुझे लगता है, आई होप इट्स क्लियर that people who work, you have seen all around us, we see that people get salaries, and you know, we should also really interrogate our own lives. हमारे आसपास भी, हमारे घर के आसपास जो हमारे घर में जो सफाई करके जाते हैं, उनकी तनख्वाहें कितनी होती हैं, और आप अगर एक सीईओ के 3 घंटे की तनख्वाह देखें तो उसको कितनी होगी। तो ये इनकम इनइक्वालिटी है, और ये व्यवस्था के आधार पर इनइक्वालिटी है। ऐसा कहीं नहीं है, मुझे ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं लगता कि, और इस पर मैं चर्चा करना चाहूंगा, इफ पीपल हैव सम ओपिनियंस, दैट इतनी असमानता क्यों होनी चाहिए कि जिस व्यक्ति ने सफाई की, मान लीजिए 2 घंटे में पूरे घर की सफाई हुई, तो आपने उसको दिया 100 रुपए, और सीईओ ने एक मीटिंग की और उसको आपने दे दिया 25,000 40,000 रुपए उस 2 घंटे का। ये इतना फर्क क्यों होता है? So that itself, that's the income inequality. The wealth inequality is one step further. तो wealth inequality में हमें समझने की जरूरत है that whatever accumulation that has been made of resources, चाहे वो property के रूप में हो, चाहे वो shares के रूप में हो, और चाहे वो cash के रूप में हो, इन सारे को वेल्थ के रूप में देखा जाता है। और उसमें आमतौर पर यूं होता है कि जिसके पास एक बार वेल्थ आ गया तो उसका वेल्थ बढ़ता जाता है। अब मुकेश अंबानी के बेटे ने जब 18 बरस प्राप्त किया, अपनी उम्र हुई, when he became an adult, जो उनको वेल्थ मिला, it would have been, as we have discussed earlier, would have been more than 99.99% of this country. So pretty much nobody would have been wealthier than him. That's wealth. Whereas many others, people who work, have a very, very hard life, are just working on their own. They're at best able to save enough to send their children to school. So that's the wealth difference that we need to understand. People are not able to spend in building properties or in shares. So a wealthy person, generations के लिए वो ये करेंगे कि आपने एक बड़ी बिल्डिंग बना ली, और ये अनुभव हम सब जानते होंगे, हमारे स्कूल में जो साथी हैं, स्टूडेंट्स विल सर्टनली नो, आपका एक 3 शॉप बन गई, आपने किराए पे दे दिया उनको, and that's the wealth, and generations are easily getting the dividends from it. So that is something that we need to understand.
Thank you, Amitabh. That's a very interesting viewpoint. I remember during a conversation before, we were discussing and you were giving us an example of how you were coming from drought-prone area in Maharashtra and you saw the building. Would you want to share that with us?
Oh, absolutely.
I can share the picture once if you would want.
If you have the picture, that would be fantastic. You know, this is it's a powerful story for me. I was in the region of Marathwada in Maharashtra, and I don't know how many students are there from Maharashtra, but they would know that that's a drought-prone area. And as part of my work, I was in that region, actually seeing how people are suffering. They were suffering immensely because of drought. So what we were seeing was, we had people not being able to get water. And there were women walking 8 kilometers just to get drinking water back home. I actually saw livelihood, cattle dying. वहां पर मैंने देखा था, और वहां से आप ये सोचिए, मैं वापस आ रहा था, तो पूना के आसपास मैं पहुंचा तो मुझे एक बहुत बड़े पत्रकार हैं, आप में से कुछ लोग जानते होंगे, नहीं जानते तो उनकी किताब जरूर पढ़ें. His name is P. Sainath. His book is called Everyone Loves a Good Drought. So read that book. It's a very good book. It'll give you a fantastic understanding of India. So he called me up and he said, now you're in Pune, you're going to Mumbai, just keep looking at the billboards. So आप सोचिए कि मेरा दिमाग है परेशान, मैं देख के आया हूं कि लोगों के पास पीने का पानी नहीं है. एक मटका पानी लाने के लिए महिलाएं 7 से 8 किलोमीटर चल रही हैं. और पूना से आगे निकला मैं लोनावाला के आसपास. The picture that you're seeing is what was there on the billboards, not one. Every 5 kilometers these billboards were there. And ये शायद पूरा picture यहाँ पर नहीं है क्योंकि बाद में शायद वो builder ने हटा लिया उसको. But it was a builder saying, we are selling homes with swimming pool in every flat. It's a multi-story building, आप लोग देख रहे होंगे. So every flat has a swimming pool, and the full picture actually has, and then a massive pool on top, on the terrace of it. So this hit me so hard that you are seeing thousands and lakhs of people suffering with not getting drinking water, and livestock dying. And here you see a building where people have, this would be gallons of water in each flat. And that is the wealth inequality that we are looking at. Once you start looking at wealth inequality, it has multiple dimensions. So it could be water inequality, like the example that I gave, the financial inequality that I talked of earlier, and so on. It goes on in multiple ways, but we need to understand this inequality. I don't know. For me, it was like, for days I couldn't, sleep, thinking of this injustice.
Yes, when you also told me this story, I was taken aback. I think it hit home, and it was really eye-opening for me as well, to kind of take for granted what I have around me. And taking forward the concept of how even economic inequality has multiple dimensions. A lot of time, these dimensions are also interrelated to caste, gender, and class. So can you please shed a little more light as to how the different lenses can be applied, or how gender and caste also play a very important role in economic inequality?
Sure. तो हम लोग इन दिनों एक कैंपेन का हिस्सा हैं जिसको हम लोग, एकदम सीधा इनइक्वालिटी को आपको मैं बताता हूं, जिसको कहते हैं जेंडर पे गैप. और ये आप अपने अड़ोस पड़ोस में भी देख सकते हैं, और ये दुनिया में न्यूयॉर्क के वॉल स्ट्रीट में भी होता है कि उसी काम के लिए महिलाओं को जो तनख्वाह मिलती है, their income is significantly lower than what men get. It's pretty much the same role. It is the same JD, and still women are paid lesser. And that's clearly because of the gender dimension to it. मैं और कुछ उदाहरण देता हूं. मतलब हम सब ने देखा होगा कि आसपास कंस्ट्रक्शन होता है. I'm sure most of the people, all school students here would have certainly seen that. उसमें अगर कोई शांति से बैठ के देखे, और मैं गुजारिश करूंगा आप थोड़ा 1-8 घंटे बैठ के देखिए वहां पर जब ये काम होता है, तो आते जाते देखने से बात समझ में नहीं आती है पूरी तरह से. आप देखेंगे कि जो बड़ी मेहनत का काम होता है, जो एक्चुअल हेड लोडिंग होता है ईंटों का, that is usually done by women. Yeah, it's interesting. People don't think about it. And it is usually the men who will do the final, putting the bricks in the right place and putting cement on it. There would be at least 3 to 4 times gap between the daily wage of this person who's working on fixing the brick and the mahila who's bringing it to that person. Again, see how role divisions also. First, as I talked of gender pay gap. The second, I'm saying even role division. मान लिया जाता है कि महिला है तो इसका काम है उठाना, और जहां हुनर का काम होता है, जहां स्किल की जरूरत होती है, वहां पुरुष आ जाता है. I find again these are stories which make me angry. Go to everybody's home. I think it's still unfortunate that men don't cook. It's all women who are essentially managing kitchens, at least in India. I can tell you, it would be overwhelming numbers. Even in a city like Delhi and Mumbai, 5, 10, 20, 50 मिल जाएंगे, पर महिलाएं चलाती हैं. But please go to the big 5-star hotels. All the chefs there, अगर 100 शेफ आप बड़े 5-star होटल में देखेंगे, 3 या 4 महिलाएं होंगी. 95% would be men, because they're getting paid. So that again, the job is taken. And let me just give you one more example on this, which I think is interesting, and for students it's important. मैं अगर किसान कहूं तो बताइए कि किसान कहने पर आपकी क्या चित्र उभर कर आता है? What is the impression you will get? Shipra, what is the standard one that even you will think?
I think and I think I've had the discussion before, but when you think of an farmer, you think of a man.
Exactly. So just to again drive home that point, that structurally also, then you create even rituals कि हल चलाने का काम महिला नहीं कर सकती. And then there is again this path-breaking book by Beena Agrawal, a very well-known economist. अगर कुछ लोग उनको पढ़ सकें, she actually has done primary data collection, and she proves, and later everybody agrees, that the bulk of kheti, the agriculture work, is done by women. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But किसान जब हम कहेंगे तो वो पुरुष हो जाता है. So gender plays out in multiple roles, but it is not just gender. Gender is important, as you said. It is usually your social location. तो अब जैसे आप कास्ट को देखेंगे, again interesting studies. कास्ट के आधार पर there's somebody called Professor Thorat. Sorry, I'm giving the names, किसी को याद रह जाएं, क्योंकि these are authorities on those areas. आपको पढ़ने में किसी को इंटरेस्ट हो तो Professor Thorat, S.K. Thorat, has done this work. Just sending CVs, the same CVs with different names, a Dalit sounding caste name, the same CV, and then you have an upper caste sounding name with the same CV. The interview calls that the Dalit ones got was 3 times lower than what the upper caste people got. So there is discrimination already happening in terms of the caste location. And this continues. When you go and try, and everybody knows that ultimately, if you need to create wealth, if you need income, you need access to capital. हम सबको पूंजी की जरूरत होती है. छोटा छोटा लोन, आपको छोटा काम करना है, बड़ा काम करना है, आप बैंक जाते हैं, आप उधार लेते हैं, और वहां आप देखिए access to credit for Dalits or lower caste is way lower than what is for the upper caste. So in multiple ways, the income gap and the wealth gap in particular gets accentuated. Instead of filling, वो बढ़ता जाता है, और इसीलिए सरकार उसके लिए कई तरह की पॉलिसीज भी बनाता है. But reality is that Dalits' access to, say, capital, which is one of the most important things for doing business, is very, very limited.
Yeah, I think these are very, very interesting data points and studies that you've given to us, and a lot to think about, and to kind of go back into our own lives and to look at our own lives with a fresh perspective, and to realize that this is everywhere around us, whether we like to accept it or not. Taking this forward, I think COVID-19 is a pandemic that has also induced and magnified the inequalities that we see around us. So can you maybe tell us some of these instances and what work Oxfam may have done to kind of overcome that?
Yeah, so today is my day for data points. so, because the issue that we're discussing has such dramatic data points that it's worth sharing, and then people are able to grasp it. Again, two data points from very, very different worlds in terms of they both coexist in India. Sab ILO ko jante honge. It's the International Labour Organization. It's part of the United Nations. That came out with a study when the COVID started, and it says almost 300 to 350 million people in India will slide below the poverty line. And we've already talked of the poverty line in India. So 300 million would be 30 crore, to 350 से 35 करोड़. 30 से 35 करोड़ लोग फिर से जो पॉवर्टी से ठीक थोड़ा ऊपर उठ के आए हैं, पॉवर्टी के नीचे जा सकते हैं. And that's the ILO data, and we have seen last quarter the contraction of Indian economy was 23%. और एक और data है which says that 78% people in this country are actually earning less than what they were earning pre-COVID times. Now let me just talk of our richest man. On the other hand, everybody knows who's the richest man in this country. I'm sure, Mr. Mukesh Ambani. He has, post-COVID, every hour added 90 crores. Please hear me again. Every hour, every single hour, 60 minutes, he's added 90 crores to his wealth. And he's now become the fourth richest in the world. That's the inequality we are seeing playing out post-COVID. So there's some people who are still benefiting immensely from the COVID crisis. But the bulk, or I would say the overwhelming majority of this country is suffering. And COVID has actually accentuated it. So we are living in a situation where the reality of inequality has become even starker. मैं आपको एक बस और याद दिला दूं, for people, if people remember, there's this, those clips of migrant workers going back from the metro cities to their small towns in UP, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, wherever they were going. उसमें एक मुझे अलग से याद है कि आगरा के पास एक व्यक्ति का वीडियो क्लिप था, and it was playing on NDTV. He was actually trying to collect milk which was spilled on the road. वो कोशिश कर रहा था किसी तरह से उसको एक कप में वो ले सके, जिससे कि अपने बच्चे को कम से कम वो दूध पिला सके. सड़क पे फैला हुआ दूध. आप सोचिए, ये एक व्यक्ति का हाल नहीं था. उस समय लाखों लोग वापस जा रहे थे, और दूसरी तरफ हम देख रहे हैं एक व्यक्ति हर घंटे 90 करोड़ अपनी पूंजी में जोड़ रहा है. तो इस कठिन परिस्थिति में what as I said, we've done multiple things. The first one was to just do humanitarian relief, and we have provided food to almost 3.5 lakh people for more than a month. Initially hot cooked meal, but later ration for a month. We provided support to frontline doctors, क्योंकि उसमें भी inequality होता है. Inequality is something once you start seeing will be everywhere, unfortunately. दिल्ली मुंबई में, although उस समय शुरू में तो दिल्ली मुंबई में भी you had PPEs for the doctors, but हमारे जो साथी काम कर रहे थे, even in state capitals like Ranchi and Patna, the doctors also didn't have the PPEs. And forget about then the other frontline health workers like the nurses, the ANMs, etc. So providing them support. We also then almost reached out to 50 lakh people across the country in helping them understand what is COVID, how can you avoid it. The whole idea of social distancing, which we keep saying is, please use the phrase physical distancing with social solidarity. हम socially क्यों distance करें एक दूसरे को? सोशली तो और नजदीक आए, पर फिजिकली दूर रहें, वही तो हम कह रहे हैं कि फिजिकल दूरी की जरूरत है. तो लोगों को ये बताना कैसे क्वारंटाइन कर सकते हैं. So we've been working on it, and also I don't know if we'll have the opportunity to talk about it, but to also start looking at how can one address questions of inequality. So particularly, for instance, the health sector, because ultimately health is one of the big reasons why people slide back to poverty. But I'll stop there, and I'll hope कि आपका कोई सवाल होगा उस पर भी.
No, thank you, Amitabh. I think this was fantastic because, and for me, social versus physical distancing is a new idea that I did not think about. So it's very enlightening to hear that. I'm going to stop here and hand it over to Amaya for further conversation. But thank you so much for taking the time out to talk with me. So, Amaya, I'm going to hand it over to you, and I'm sure there are lots of questions that are coming up that we can now address.
Thank you so much, Shipra. So Amitabh, when you're talking, you're telling us that it's going to be a data session, but all the data you shared, there's a lot of agreement on chat. They're like, yes, sir. And there's a lot of thumbs up to all the data points you've shared. So I think that has been really enlightening for the students. What I want to ask or firstly open is with a question from Kohinoor. So Kohinoor, I think, is from a school in Thane, Rustamji, Cambridge, and she asks you a question, which is, what are some of the initiatives that the government has taken? And you could tell us maybe the recent ones or maybe the ones in the past. Have they worked, and what has not worked? So if you could highlight that, that'd be fantastic.
So I mean, initiatives for
reducing economic inequality.
Okay, sure. So I must say that government over the years, in its stated objectives, has been working towards reducing inequality. That's one of the biggest objectives. It starts with our constitution, as I said. You look at the preamble, it talks of equality. So it is one of the aspirations for us. And then every political party, irrespective of whether it is a Congress or a BJP, you read their manifesto or their own constitution, they will say that they would want to create an equal society. And they do take a lot of important measures. Like, for instance, I was talking of, at multiple levels. For instance, just to take back to the conversation we have had, there are specific schemes for ensuring that Dalits get credit. So there are, several schemes, and there are even commissions which have been created, which ensure that Dalits will get access to credit. तो बैंकों को अलग से निर्देश दिया जाता है कि अगर आपको दलित व्यक्ति से आवेदन आता है लोन के लिए, तो आप उसे नहीं कह सकते. Similarly, we have even had laws which say that you cannot have the gender pay gap that we were talking of. And they're not one, several laws. It essentially says the principle is that for similar work, you will have to pay the same amount. You cannot discriminate based on anything. So it's the work which is important. Then the third, in principle, I must also say that we talk of progressive taxation. तो आप सब देखते हैं कि अगर आपकी तनख्वाह जो आमदनी है सालाना वो 30 लाख से ज्यादा है तो आप 30% देते हैं, 10 लाख से कम है तो आप 10% देते हैं. उसके अलग अलग स्लैब्स हैं, उसमें आप जानते हैं बदलाव होता है, महिलाओं के लिए भी उसमें अलग से इंसेंटिव होता है. So these are all long-term policies which one government after another has adhered to. So I must say that there has been serious attempt, for us to understand. You should not become skeptical about what government does. That's not helpful. We need a full understanding that we have done many things to change that. Just to have the affirmative action of ensuring reservation of Dalits and Adivasis even in the parliament, so that their voice is heard, and multiple ways where we are trying to address inequalities of multiple kinds. However, what we also need to understand is that, जो भाषा मैं सही इस्तेमाल करता हूं, there are enough people who know how to game the system, and who ensure that what we are doing is as governments is ineffective. So that's very, very important. For instance, अब मैं आपको बताता हूं कैसे हम गड़बड़ करते हैं. आप जाते हैं, ये मतलब आप सब बड़े स्कूल वाले हैं, तो मैं आपको स्कूलों का ही बता देता हूं, आपके टीचर नाराज ना हो मेरे से. स्कूल और कॉलेजेस का ही बताता हूं आपको मैं, कि स्कूल और कॉलेजेस जो होते हैं और या अस्पताल जो होते हैं, उनको जमीन बहुत ही कम दामों पे मिल जाती है. अस्पतालों को तो वो 1 रुपए पे दे देते हैं, पर उनका कहना होता है कि आपको कम से कम 30% आपके जो लोग मरीज आएंगे उनको आपको मुफ्त इलाज करना पड़ेगा. और आप जानते हैं बड़े शहरों में जमीन की सबसे ज्यादा कीमत होती है. But then they don't end up doing that. So starting from, this is government policy, which then people start evading, and then the benefits of that do not reach the society. And then similarly, we all know how taxes की हम बात कर रहे थे, तो tax evasion कितना होता है. ऑफशोरिंग एक चीज होती है, आप लोग जानते हैं कि नहीं? आप लोगों ने पढ़ा होगा, ललित मोदी के समय चल रहा था ये, कि कंपनीज को रजिस्टर कर दिया जाता है भारत के बाहर, और जिससे कि उनको टैक्स ही नहीं देना पड़े. और कुछ ऐसे देश हैं जहां पर टैक्सेस नहीं होते, जिनको टैक्स हेवंस कहते हैं, तो वहां ले जाया जाता है. तो ये दूसरी तरह का प्रॉब्लम है. और तीसरा जो महत्वपूर्ण है कि बहुत शक्तिशाली लोग मिलकर पॉलिसीज को ही बदलवाने की कोशिश करते हैं, जिससे कि कुछ लोगों को फायदा होता रहे. So that's something, for instance, the investment in ensuring that everybody gets potable, which is safe drinking water at home. Why does it not happen? A lot of people will say that there are lobbies which stop the municipal corporations from supplying that safe drinking water. So that the whole business of from running tankers to the bottled water to the filters that we have of multiple kinds can be sold. So these are the things that we'll need to understand, that policies also get changed, and we'll need to understand at one level government is doing good things, but there are enough people who try and those good things not happen, और उसको कमजोर करते हैं. So it is a holistic view that one needs to engage with.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amitabh. I'm sure that's not a very, it's not, you can't have a one-sided answer to it as well. There's so many different dimensions, that play a part into this. So thank you so much for sharing. And I think there's quite a few questions coming in. One of them, and I think this also is very relevant to the COVID-19 crisis. It comes from Nahir, who says, how do we ensure accessibility to financial inclusion packages to the different strata of society? So how do we make sure that financial inclusion packages work well for all the different socioeconomic levels, especially now that they've been released?
Okay, so आपने कहा नाहिद से है ये?
Nahir, the student's name is Nahir.
Nahir, okay. Yeah. So Nahir, I'm sorry, I'll twist your question a little, because I want to respond to a larger point here. And I think, that's the crux of a lot of our conversation till now in terms of the solutions. So if you look at, I don't know how many of you are students of history, how many of you are students of civics, पर सब मतलब 10 तक तो सब civics पढ़ते ही हैं, और इतिहास भी पढ़ते ही हैं 10वीं तक सब. So the history of modern states across the world. तो 1950 के बाद वो पूरा का पूरा एशिया में बहुत सारे जो देश आजाद हुए, वहां मॉडर्न स्टेट्स की कल्पना हुई. यूरोप में पोस्ट सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर फिर से एक कल्पना हुई स्टेट्स की. One of the fundamental things was that we created what is called a social contract, the idea of a social contract between citizens and state. अब उस शब्द पे ज्यादा मत जाइएगा, पढ़िएगा social contract को, but the idea that because I'm a citizen of this country, I must certainly get from the state certain rights. And that's what I wanted to take you to. That if I'm born in India, I have a right not only to vote, I also have a right to freedom of speech. But मैं अभी उसकी बात नहीं कर रहा हूँ. I also have a right to get safe drinking water. I have a right to get primary health care. I have a right to get education. So this is what I wanted to bring in आपके सवाल में कि हम लोग सिर्फ फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन पैकेज पे चले जाते हैं. हमारे देश की समस्या सिर्फ इंक्लूजन पैकेज से नहीं सुलझेगी. हम लोगों को यह इंश्योर करना पड़ेगा कि हर नागरिक के पास, हर व्यक्ति के पास बुनियादी जीवन जीने के लिए जो अधिकार चाहिए. You know what we say, for life with dignity, the rights that you need should be ensured. So for us, that's really the question. Why don't you ensure that everybody gets basic health services? That's the question. So if you go to, I don't know, आप में से कितने लोगों का के रिश्तेदार रहते हैं, कितने लोग जाते रहते हैं. If you go to whether it's United Kingdom, whether you go to Germany, any country in Europe, you don't pay a penny and you get pretty much the best health service that you would get in that country. And that is what we need. At this moment, I think particularly COVID has reminded us that the state must ensure these few basics. जिसमें right to food भी है. हम लोगों के यहाँ मतलब it's a formal कानून कि सबको खाना मिलना चाहिए. So it's a right. Let's work on that. Once we've been able to do this, then the question of जो आप कह रहे हैं, financial inclusion will become easier. Because at the moment, and as Oxfam, I can tell you, we have even run programs of cash transfers. और उसमें बड़ी समस्या होती है. It's a very difficult decision. हम लोग देना चाहते हैं cash transfer so that people can stand back and start their livelihood. तो उनका जो ठेला है उसको शुरू कर सकें, अपनी सिलाई मशीन वापस शुरू कर सकें. But we also know that once they get that, you know, we give 5,000 rupees. The first thing they have to do is to buy food and medicines. So morally it becomes very difficult for us. ये कहना कि आप खाना मत खरीदिए, भूखे रहिए, लेकिन आप अपना रोजगार का काम करिए. So these basic needs should be ensured by the state, and that's what we should aspire for. And that's how we can actually create a more equal society. And it is not romantic idea. ऐसा नहीं कि मैं सपने देख रहा हूं, मैं आपको उदाहरण दे रहा हूं यूरोप के एक नहीं कई जगहों से. और इसको खत्म करने के लिए फिर इनइक्वालिटी का आपको बता दूं मैं कि हम सब जानते हैं कि स्वास्थ्य का क्या हल होता है. और दूसरी तरफ आप ये देखिए that India is known for medical tourism. I hope people know that. So मतलब from Russia to Ukraine to New Zealand, people come to India for medical services because we have the best of the doctors. Some hospitals are super specialty hospitals, but on the other hand, we are not able to ensure that people will not die of diarrhea. Children are dying of diarrhea. 30% of the global malnourished children live in India. That's the inequality. And sorry, a long answer आपके सवाल के लिए, but I hope I have responded to the question.
No, indeed. Thank you so much for that, Amitabh. I think they also do an activity which is talking about inequalities in the healthcare system. And I think you sort of elaborated on that really beautifully by giving us an example. So thank you so much for telling us that before even looking at financial inclusion, look at the basics, look at what the country needs to strengthen its economic base, even before going on to the relief packages and things that are very much thrown at us in the news. So thank you so much for elaborating on that. A constant question that's coming up, and I think you can take your time answering it as well, is what can we do or students do as individuals? And a lot of students are like, what can we do? What can I do as an individual? What can we do as citizens to even take the first step towards reducing the economic inequality that we see? So one step that they've already taken is they've they are a part of this club. They are thinking about this, which I think is a great first step according to me. But anything else that you think that they can do from the power and the network and the capacity that they have, anything that Oxfam is doing that they can get involved with further? So we would love to hear your thoughts about this. Could be at an individual level, at a community level, or broadly as well.
Okay, so what I would say is, as you said, all these students joining the equality clubs already demonstrates that they're committed to this idea. So it certainly is a tribute to their desire to create a more just and equal society. But let me also say, the things that you can do are enormous. Don't limit yourself to just joining a club. And let me just quickly rattle out 5, 6, 10 different things. और आप मुझे बताइएगा, जो आप लोग लिख रहे हैं तो आप लिख के ये भी बताइएगा इसमें से क्या किया जा सकता है, इसमें क्या मदद की जरूरत है, या आपको क्या लगता है क्या करना चाहिए. Starting with, ask your other schoolmates to join this club. That's critical, because ultimately it's a critical mass of people who will be able to make the change. Second, talk to people around you about inequality. Very often we don't see even naked inequality in front of us. Third, just help people see this. जैसे मैंने अभी कुछ उदाहरण दिए हैं, आप उसी की बात करिए. ये जब सोचते हैं हम, अखबार में पढ़ते हैं कि आता है रशिया से एक बच्चा आया है, उसका हमने हार्ट का ट्रांसप्लांट कर दिया. And how can we still see street children just of cold? That's what we see. So how do you constantly talk about that? Third, what I would say is to make people, once you've made them aware, make them sensitive about it. And to make them sensitive, I think that's a difficult one. And that's a difficult, you will face challenges. Let me also be honest. A lot of times, because this is about questioning our own privilege. Once you talk of equality, it does question your own privilege. लड़के जितने हैं, अब मैं intentionally कह रहा हूं, हमारे देश में आज भी लड़के जो बड़े हो रहे हैं, वो privilege में बड़े होते हैं. उनमें क्या ये हिम्मत हो और जज्बा हो कि वो अपने पेरेंट्स को बता सकें that I'm not going to accept discrimination of my sister or my friends who are women. That's not going to be acceptable. It's going to be difficult because you're giving away some of your privilege. और ये subtle level पर होता है ये privilege. अभी आप लोग आसपास से खेलकर वापस आते हैं तो कितने बजे लड़के खेलकर वापस घर आते हैं, शाम को 5:30 बजे लड़कियां आ जाती होंगी और आपको 6:30 तक मौका मिलता होगा. छोटी छोटी चीजों से लेकर बदलाव होता है. So even just questioning that. And then what I would say is take action, and I don't think that anybody is too young. I really think that you can add immense value once you start engaging with the world, whether it's a petition by Oxfam, whether it's a petition by someone else. Do write your letters to the newspapers, letters to the ministers, etc., saying that this level of inequality is unacceptable. So there are multiple action platforms, and if you want, join us in ways, and we'll find ways of helping you act without compromising on your core work, which is being a student.
Are there, Amitabh, just going off of that, are there any active campaigns that Oxfam is running right now that our participants can take a look at?
Oh, absolutely. So at the moment we are running a very interesting campaign, which is called Rights Over Profits, which is essentially post-COVID. We are saying that the right of health and the right to health and the right to education needs to be ensured. And you need to regulate the private sector. जैसे फिर आपको एक उदाहरण देता हूं. लोगों का greed also is such a big problem. In India, in Delhi, when the COVID started, can you imagine what was the 1 day cost for a ventilator? It was 75,000 rupees for a day for a ventilator. सोचिए, जो आदमी मरने की कगार पर है, उससे आप कह रहे हैं कि आप 75,000 रुपए सिर्फ वो उस वेंटिलेटर को लगाने का लेंगे. Now the government has regulated it and said you cannot take more than 18,000. You know, and this is, just imagine, so 18 ke above, though, it was obnoxious profit that they were making. Greed over people's lives. So, you know, we're running this campaign that you have to regulate the private sector. You cannot now at this juncture, when people's incomes are going down, the schools cannot force parents to pay 3 months advance fees, do school development charges, etc. So, you know, it's really about ensuring rights over profits. So, you know, that's one campaign. But you know what I would also say, as in I would love if you come to Oxfam website, join these campaigns, but do explore. There might be something else which you also find interesting, which will actually make you more satisfied in addressing the question of inequality.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amitabh. I will post a link of that campaign. I've just found it. So I'll post it on the YouTube chat at the end of the webinar. So I hope and encourage everyone to, you know, check that out and see and learn more. But I think one more thing that, you know, from my side that I'm thinking, since we work a lot with young people as a part of YLAC, you are all, you know, great at social media and, you know, social media activism, and you all love sharing and tagging. And I think that that's something we all can do, even if, yes, you know, it's called armchair activism, but it does no harm. So I think we can always, you know, share and forward and tell people more, even if it's your parents and, you know, that family WhatsApp group where you want to share a little bit more about economic equality, go for it. I think that's something that as young people, we should definitely do a lot more of. What do you think, Amita?
Oh, absolutely. जिसको आपने कहा, I won't say armchair. आजकल तो वो क्या कह रहे हैं, click activism जो कहते हैं. That's the word. And let me, you know, on a lighter note, I've been fighting now within Oxfam Confederation globally. हम लोग अपने campaigns को कहने लगे हैं उल्टा. We are saying this is a online and an offline campaign. So absolutely, what Amay is saying is fantastic. Most campaigns have become so online that the campaigns that I have been involved for now 2 decades, 3 decades are now being called offline, defined as an opposite of the online. So the power of online campaigns is immense. So do go for it when you really think. You know, my only request would be, I would love to see numbers, but I would not want, particularly in a conversation like this, to just do it because we as your friends are doing it. Absorb the concept, understand the concept, and if your heart really says that, go for it. By doing that, click activism and speaking to many, many others.
Absolutely agree. Thank you so much, Amitabh, for those wise words. I think we are almost at the end of time, and I don't see any more questions. But I think one, maybe a quick line, and I think this is an interesting question: that can these huge gaps of inequalities ever be reduced to zero at any point in the future? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so you know, whether it is Gautam Buddha, or whether it was Christ, whether it was Paigambar, you know, so I'm just talking of the religious leaders to start with. But whether you look at Gandhi or a Mandela, we are all saying that we need to create a just society. And we want to create an equal society. And what I would say is, you know, I want to, you know, certainly give optimism. The work I do, if you listen to my speeches, I would be critiquing a lot of things, challenging a lot of things. But that is so that things improve. I'm saying this, that if you look at the question of inequality, in the last, say, 200 years, things have changed dramatically. slavery was a reality 200 years ago in the US. Women could not vote in most of the countries 70, 80 years ago. All that has changed. In India, untouchability was the reality, which is still a reality, unfortunately, but in much smaller pockets. It is something that was real. All that has changed dramatically. And the kind of wealth which was concentrated around only based on your family is changing now. So I am very hopeful. Yes, there are huge challenges to be overcome. Obstacles are immense. But what I am also seeing that the trajectory of the human project, so to speak, is going in the right direction. And we will eventually create a more just, a more fair, and a more equal society. I have no doubts about it. So let's dedicate all our lives, as in I really believe that I would want to dedicate my life completely to getting wherever we can reach. But I hope a whole generation actually commits to that. There will be problems. Climate change is a new problem which we have created unknowingly in many ways. We are still not stopping it. That will again create more inequalities of a different kind. But I trust the goodness of people, and we will work towards a more equal society.
Thank you so much, Amitabh. I think on that hopeful and optimistic note, we would like to give a sincere gratitude for your time. I know your back must be really troubling you by now at the end of the webinar, but the comments are coming in there. Everyone really loved the discussion. So thank you so much for joining us. Shipra, would you like to say something really quickly as well?
Thank you, Amitabh. Thank you really a lot for being here. I think it was really insightful, not just for students, but for me as well. And thank you for being a part of this conversation.
So thank you for inviting me, and thank you, Shipra and Ame, and thank you, everybody. Unfortunately, this medium is such that I'm just seeing Shipra and Ame. I would have loved to see all the other faces, but आप सबका बहुत शुक्रिया जो आप सब जुड़े हैं इक्वालिटी क्लब से, और लोगों को जोड़िए इक्वालिटी के मुद्दे पर हम मिलकर काम करें, और जैसे मैं कह रहा था, एक नए समाज की कल्पना नहीं, हम लोग संघर्ष कर उसे बनाएंगे जरूर.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amitabh. You can leave the call. I will just finish really quickly with some last few words for the students as well.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So thank you everyone for being a part of the webinar. As always, we have an amazing Instagram page at @equalityclubs. If you can see here, we are constantly posting a bunch of different things. For example, if you remember the art competition, the winners have been posted there. Any very cool outputs that you share with us, the things you write, the things you draw, we share it all on this page. So do give us a follow and do check it out and share it with others. That is also one small thing that you can do as students of the club. But that's about it from us. Thank you so much for joining in once again on a Wednesday evening. We know that it's not super easy after a day-long schedule of classes. But thank you so much. We absolutely love your support, and we'll be sharing more details about more initiatives, competitions, and different things that we'll be doing with you very, very soon. So thank you so much, and have a great evening ahead.